Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Jimmy Paschke joins us from Gastonia, North Carolina, where he is settling into his brand new role as VP of Sales and Marketing for Apex Technologies US, the distributor of high-performance European AV brands. Jimmy is a hugely popular figure in the custom integration business, joining Apex from SurgeX, where he was Director of Sales for many years. His expertise in the custom AV channel runs deep, having previously held Director of Sales positions at prominent AV companies, including Core Brands and Panamax, as well as sales management positions at D&M Holdings and Kaleidescape. Jimmy also served on the board of the Azione Unlimited buying group. Now he is working with Apex owner Ryan Donaher, best known for his longtime role at Meridian America, where he will work directly with sales reps to drive business while Ryan continues to focus on dealer sales and support. I've always enjoyed interacting with Jimmy at trade shows and industry events, but I've never asked him the hard questions that I'm sure that we're all dying to know the answers to. Like, where did he grow up? What did he study in college? And how did he end up in this business instead of politics? Hopefully we'll find out that stuff and more today. Jimmy Paschke, the legendary Jimmy Paschke, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. This is going to be cool.
I think it will be. I always, like I said, I find you to be one of those comforting presence at industry events. You're so laid back and chill, and your reputation sort of precedes you, and you're just like this laid back guy. You're like one of these guys that at a buying group, your name gets mentioned or your picture goes up on the screen for some reason, like you're on the Azione board, and all the bros in the big meeting room all hoot and holler for some reason. They're like, Jimmy. And like, this guy, he's like one of the dudes, you know. And then I talk to you and you're just so laid back, such a humble guy. And I guess it must be come out at late at night or something when I'm back in bed in the hotel room or something. Are you like one of these late after hours type of wild men that I just don't ever see in public space?
I definitely do evenings better than I do mornings for sure. But
okay.
Yeah, well, I've always thought that more things get done. There's more productive time after the show, you know, and generally, and maybe it's just the business we're in, although I think probably most industries operate to a degree like this, but it just happens to be at the bars, I guess maybe because they're open the latest.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I figure that you're just one of these that you're in the sales business, right? But you have that authentic quality. It's an overused word now, authentic or authenticity, but you just are kind of the real deal. So I feel like that's probably what comes through. People just really respect that and like you as a person. So
yeah,
it's as much about that as anything. It's probably a good lesson for those who are in the sales field. But hey, congrats on the new job. I'm a big fan of you, of course, and your colleague Ryan at Apex. Yeah. And so when I saw that the two of you were getting together, I was legit excited for you. What brought you together in this company? I know Ryan's been doing it for a couple of years. So how did you come together?
I'll use another overused word, organically.
Okay.
You know, we've got a small group of peers that have gotten together over the years, kind of like dealers, you know, bouncing ideas off each other. What would you do in this scenario? And man, when COVID hit, we really came together. It was like, what the hell are we all going to do now? You know, and I remember initially it was like, well, we took our forecast down in half. And I think it was Bryce back then who was like, oh, we're seeing the exact opposite. And he saw it first. Networking, go figure, you know, work from home took off. And within days, Access Networks business is just climbing. And we're all going, well, that's weird. We're not seeing that. First 2 months, business was way off. So what are we going to do? You know, and those were just conversations that were pointed at a time where maybe it was the most crucial to have those discussions. But for years, we've been doing that. You know, how do you manage reps and how do you manage some of these more difficult relationships, whether it's with maybe a certain project or a dealer or two, or you name it. Maybe it's marketing. You name the topic, we were having it, you know, and it's always good to figure out, is there a best practice out there we can rely on? Is there somebody smarter than me? And hell yeah, there's a lot of people smarter than me. But as a collective, I think we generated some really cool ideas. And with Ryan in particular, I saw the ability to maybe contribute immediately to helping him grow. And the first question was, do you want to grow? And he's not looking to double his business, triple his business. He's looking to grow with the brands that maybe could use some help growing. And, Meridian's doing quite well. Other brands are newer to Apex Technologies, but the synergy is through the roof. And because of that, we should expect some aggressive growth numbers this year and into next year, and then moving forward.
Yeah, Ryan, in the press release, I thought was super complimentary of your role and the potential there. He said, it was an awesome recipe for success, and said that hiring you enables Apex to maintain its quality while managing rapid growth, and that you have one of the best reputations in the business. I don't want your head to get so big here, but it's a lot about aligning the two of your kind of roles and kind of having the same company culture ideas there, that sentiment. Remind everyone what brands Apex is working with now, and what you like so far, just as from learning what you have about those brands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, starting out, Ryan's extremely good at dealer relationships. And I'm okay with, I appreciate what you said earlier. I'm okay with dealer relationships, and I appreciate every one of them that I have. I work really well with reps, and I like the transparency and communication and setting expectations on both fronts. What can I do better as a manufacturer? What can the rep do better as a rep? And we've already started down that path, and I think the reps appreciate the attention, and I believe we're going to be able to grow together because of it. And what we're looking to grow, Display Technologies makes phenomenal product, acoustically transparent screens, masking that's built into Logic that makes very good sense for automation brands like Savant, Crestron, C4, you name it. They have these particular application specific mounts for projectors where you think you couldn't put a projector in a room. You can do it this way by mounting it outside of the room and having a porthole and a mirror system, project onto the front of the wall and front of the room rather, or coming from behind. It's really neat because it opens up avenues for dealers where we thought maybe we were pigeonholed into only a particular solution. Light walls. I just left a dealer. I had a holy shit moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be with Jeremy at 2:30. And here I was enthralled with this light wall theater in Charlotte, North Carolina, where, I wanted to see it firsthand. And it's another example of a lighting solution that as I told the dealer, I said, I think y'all, the CEDIA channel, are going to go nuts with this. I said, we haven't even begun to see the creativity explode. And it's a reactionary LED system that allows you to work with video, and it's pixel pointed so that we could create zones and group zones together. And maybe one day you'll be able to do more than just LED strips or HDMI matrix walls. Maybe there'll be fixtures as a part of that. Who knows? But I just think that right there, that category is going to be big. For an already blossoming lighting category in CEDIA. Displays Technologies, light walls, Next Gen, which does incredible audio matrixing and DSP, the DSP part of it in particular. When we put in very high-end our architectural designed audio systems, it's uber crucial then to make sure that big open spaces sound good. And so when you come in and engineer that audio with an acoustician and some DSP and equalization, you can bring an outstanding performance experience to almost any room or any system within the home. And then lastly, HD Anywhere, which is brand new. I think press just hit on that or is about to, but that's video matrix switching that is already proven to be more than that, because we've had to go use it in particular situations where we have handshake issues with HDMI. They've got
Hmm.
solutions that enable us to pull some CEC information out and try to get the handshake corrected. So
Okay.
it's a vast assortment of very high end audio, mostly driven solutions. TPI and Meridian represent the reference of that, whether we're looking at
Hmm.
monstrous theaters or architectural designs around interior design friendly solutions in a home. TPI and Meridian are at the apex, if you will, at all that. And then we hope to bring in DT and Light Walls and these other two brands, Next Gen and HD Anywhere, to fill it out.
So the company's position then, as far as a distributor goes for those brands, there was no pre-existing ability for. I know that that's not the case for Meridian, because Ryan was the basically U.S. representative for Meridian when in his prior role. So
Mm-hmm.
Meridian was in the U.S., but some of these others I'm really not that familiar with. Um, it's not like he's an importer, but what is the distribution position versus like some of the other just direct dealer type opportunities, since they're an international collection of international brands?
Yeah, and
Is
it's
that sort of necessary for that?
yeah, and I guess it's funny because these relationships with TPI and Lightwalls DT, which is the same company. Um, I just had my first week over there at UK, going to these factories, and when you watch the interaction
Mm,
between Ryan and the owners, you get the sense, kind of like you did, Jeremy, from looking at the outside, that these guys were buddies, and they're like, "Hey, you
mm,
do good work over there. Could you do that with this brand?" And as long as it makes
okay.
sense, not that we should be taking on every brand. And honestly, like I do think we probably will put the brakes on after a little while and say, hey, let's just get really good at executing with what we have and then look at
Hmm.
other possibilities. But I think what we have right now is just golden. And I do believe it'll be a home run, to use some of your softball analogy. It'll be a home run for all of us. But I got the sense that those guys just got along. And
Okay.
and when you're overseas and you look at the US market, yeah, you see potential, right? It's huge. But can you simply just start up one day and say, "Hey, we're for sale. We got a sales manager." It'd be a lot easier if you had a network of the best dealers, which we do,
Hmm.
and the best reps, which we do. And that, recipe right there, that foundation is going to help us with our existing brands and whatever other potentials we could bring in down the road.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me now. The relationships really are the key there, and developing that network of reps like you're working with, and then obviously all those dealers that Ryan has known over the years. That
Yeah.
just it goes so far in helping that company make it get its foot in the door with the U.S. market.
Hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
And you have a pretty diverse background on the manufacturing side, with how I described in the intro, but for recent years, you seem to be really the power management expert because of the Panamax and SurgeX roles.
Hmm.
Um, in in your role in sales and marketing and working with reps, did you become a pretty technical guy, or is it really about the communication and relationship building more than it is about the technical? You kind of leave the tech support and engineers
Yeah.
to that stuff. How much technical? How much of an actual power guy did you become over the years?
Well, uh, yeah. So I love to learn existentially, having it put in front of me, and, you know, I want to see and hear the results. And I remember my first week at Furman having almost no knowledge of power, by the way. In fact, I was like, I think at that time I was leaving D&M Holdings, and a rep gave my name to Kristen Ruff and Dave Keller at that time. They had already had
Hmm.
a candidate in mind. They said, okay, we'll interview you, and that worked out. And I thought, wow, I'm going to sell power. And as I tell anybody that's about to do a training on power with me, it's like, yeah, I know. Put a gun to my head. We're talking about surge for the next hour. And it ends up being that they only had 45 minutes, and they wanted to stick around for another hour and a half, because
Wow.
because it was so important. But I wouldn't say I'm like the most technical person. The way I learn is by having issues come about in the field. And
Hmm.
Mark Weisenberg taught me years ago that the answers are in the field, and they sure as shit are. When one dealer gets stuck, another dealer's already solved the problem, and you just have to find them, find that dealer that solved the problem, then make a note and be like, oh yeah, that came up once before, and here's how it was addressed. Power technically, and my technical chops for power came out of like, I don't know, thousands of meetings over the years, and then setting up demonstrations or witnessing things firsthand, and then realizing what was the solution. So already, having gone to the UK, hearing, Meridian reference in the theater and Meridian reference 2-channel audio. I used to go do that on my own back in the day when a dealer say, I don't have enough time, or I'll be with you in 20 minutes or whatever. He'd have a nice kick-ass system. I'd be like, oh, I want to listen to that. It's 10 grand, or the next one's 100 grand, another one's 750. And it's like, what is 750 grand versus 10? I'd love to hear the
Right.
difference of that. Right.
Hmm.
And so I walked away from the UK with an appreciation for the differences and subtleties between Meridian and then TPI. And for instance, when you talk about one being very technical and very precise and methodical in its engineering, and just keeping that digital stream from input to output, it's awesome. Then you go to TPI, and they are so laid back, totally different than Meridian. I think OSHA would probably have something to say about the tour that we got in the factory. You're stepping over crap to, you know. But if you want like balls to the wall, this is going to be the best damn theater you could put together, and it's a huge room. TPI is it. So um, I'm passionate about the business that I'm in, and I've always been passionate about things other than just power in the recent years. I like power, and I think power is still important. It's going to become even more important. But I'll leave the very technical questions to the guys that can answer for
Yeah.
now, and I'll learn while we do it. And then anywhere where I can learn and then teach, I'm going to look to do that.
We will continue our conversation with Apex Technologies' Jimmy Paschke after the break.
Do you want superior smart home automation at a great value? Shelly Wi-Fi relays by Alterco Robotics cover DC to line voltage, allowing you to control lights, outlets, appliances, garage doors, pumps, and much more. There are Shelly sensors and power measurement devices to help you measure temperature, humidity, lux, or motion, and electrical consumption from single wire to 3-phase with neutral. You can use Shelly with a licensed driver for Control 4, Elon, or other premium systems, as well as your customer's existing hub, voice assistant, or any platform that accepts REST, MQTT, or CoAP. Shelly can make IoT very easy. Available now at Blackwire, City Electric Supply, and Worthington, or at shellyusa.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Apex Technologies' Jimmy Paschke. Jimmy, I know that when you're not a road warrior out in the field like you are so much in your career, you're in North Carolina, but you went to college at Florida State. Where did you actually grow up?
So Fort Myers, Florida, which
Okay.
when you move to North Carolina from Florida, everyone wonders why. And what's so weird is when you grow up in Florida, the only thing you could think to do is move to the mountains, which North
Okay.
Carolina has hills, really, in comparison to out west. But for me, it's about as far north as I'd love to be, because I don't really like the cold weather being a Florida boy. But I do love the terrain. I never liked the flatness of Southwest Florida. Tallahassee was cool because we did get into some rolling hills. But yeah, I went to college, and Sony had asked me, based on some things that I had put together at Sears while I was going to college. I worked at Sears as a commission sales guy. They said, hey, we got an opening. Would you move to North Carolina? And I was trying to keep it way cool. Like, oh my God, this company wants me to move to where I used to vacation my whole life. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
cool with that. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that kind of leads into to how you connect with this industry then. But at Florida State, you studied political science, I see,
Yeah.
and you did a stint there interning or volunteering at the State House. And so it's clear that you had an interest in the I guess political sphere. I don't know how better to describe it, but you were also a drummer in a band for a while. So I see that musical connection that so many people that come into this industry have. It's either you're a guy that likes to take things apart as a kid and put them back together, or you're a music person, or both. And it sounds like you're from that music side. So is that kind of what drew your attention to the industry? And what was it that you just decided political science, not really my path?
Yeah, working at the state legislature was cool. I remember being in a committee meeting and they were talking about this company, SpaceX, in 10 years would,
Ooh.
consider opening up in Cape Canaveral, or it was looking at Texas. And so, and they had talked about that time where they would travel to the moon and back in a very quick time, and they would take people up. And I was just like, this is mind blowing. Like, I couldn't even fathom that. That was 1996, 97. So it's really wild to be in on that. And that was cool. But mostly what I dealt with was pretty dry legalese. And that part was not cool. And I had been at the moment, I was at a juncture where I was considering public admin and law. And then I remember this gentleman, Henry Kaitong, comes into Sears from Sony. He was a local detailer. And he got to talking, and we formed a relationship over the years, a couple years. And he said, hey, there's an opening in North Carolina. And I was like, man, AV is so much more fun. Electronics is cool. And Sony, come on. I mean, I was in love with Sony back then. So what I really like about that time is that a few years later, I became a trainer at Sony, and I got to work with Jeff Goldstein's group. And funny enough, he's back, which is amazing.
Yep.
And I fell in love with the CEDIA channel then, and learned more and more about high end. Like, we would take a $3,000 SACD player and match it with like 260 grand worth of transparent audio cables and Wilson Watt Puppy System 7s, and do these incredible demonstrations. And the art of the demo was pretty key back then. And appreciating good quality was, awesome to get that exposure. Yeah. So I'm glad that it happened. And it just came through. I didn't wish for it. I wasn't looking for the role, and there it was right in front of me. And I'm so glad it happened. Yeah.
Well, it seems to be a good fit for you, and you found your way into some pretty noteworthy companies over the years. Have you always just been a road warrior, like I described you? It seems like you're the type of guy that just doesn't stay home very long.
Yeah. COVID was that an
That
interesting
must have
time.
been,
Good Lord. That
yeah,
was
that was a
like
tough
difficult, right? Like I ended up, because I didn't know what else to do. I ended up staying in my home office Monday through Friday for the first month, and then staying in the bedroom for the weekends. The first month, it
one.
was so weird to me because when I moved up to North Carolina, I chose Gastonia because Charlotte was too big, but Gastonia was minutes from the airport, 20 to 30 minutes. I could be getting to the security gate at the airport. And since 99, travel's been, probably north of 70% a year, every year. So yeah, it's, but I love to travel. Sometimes it gets tough to be away from home for long stretches of time. Sometimes I forget what room I'm in at a hotel or what floor I'm on, but I do love to see the dealers, and I love to learn from the dealers and experience what they bring to their customers. Walk a home, and maybe it's pre-stage, but also walk it after and get to experience the theater somebody put together, or the whole system, or the outdoor, whatever.
Yeah, as long as you have those relationships, I would imagine that every day kind of is a unique work day for you. I mean, if you're trying to build those relationships from scratch, I'm sure it can be a real grind to be out there in the field trying to cold call and meet people and all that. But if you're maintaining those relationships and people will welcome you, like I've seen dealers and reps talk to you at different events, then it would seem like every day is kind of a cool new look at what's going on out there in the field. That must be pretty stimulating as a job to be out there as much as you are. I would be exhausted by it. I'm an introvert, so like I couldn't recharge enough to be able to do what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I roll with it, man. Like, flight delays, and different things that come up while you travel. Um,
Yeah.
I still forget crap. Like even Trisha was like surprised that I didn't have socks one trip, or I forgot a belt, or, thank God I remember the other things. But um, yeah, it still happens, but I just roll with it. And holy crap, when you mentioned cold calling, there was a time when I worked with Jay Miller, Acoustic Innovations, and immediately
Oh
I'm
yeah.
thinking about going from one town to another. I had just the Southeast then, and I would go to the phone book and rip out the section of home theater and then call everybody one by one and, hey, can I meet with you? And I mean, it was like, but I love that, dude. And then somebody would
Mm.
say no. And I think, I don't care. You said no, but I'm still going to call you, like, you don't think you can do it, but I know you can do it. And that's probably the number one thing that I love about my entire time in this business is that you'll hit somebody with something that seems expensive, and expensive is such a relative term in this CEDIA channel, but
Yeah.
somebody will think something's expensive. Oh, we'll never sell it. And then boom, hey, I got a big bite on that thing that was really pricey. Then that's what I love, because the dealer did it, and then
Mm.
they elevate their game and do more. And it's not just the money. It's the fact that a lot of times the homeowner they don't know what's possible. And then the dealer
Mm.
shows them what's possible based on what they know. But then when the dealer gets into something newer and watching their game like elevate, and they're into categories they didn't know they would be in, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great way to look at it, and the brands that you're working with now seem to fit really well into that mindset of just broadening and expanding the possibilities in a project.
Oh yeah.
Power really essential. You've been doing that a while. I mean, you might still have to make the case for it because the homeowner just doesn't get, why is this one line on my bid? I don't think I need that. So you fight that battle, but the dealers probably are in agreement that it's important. With this other stuff, you're starting to get into that lighting and different areas where it's still a new thing for a high percentage of the dealers out there, even though it's becoming a really big story and growing in popularity. So there's potential, but a lot of education. And I didn't, when you mentioned all the trainings that you've done, I mean, that sort of answered the question about the technical chops, because to be able to talk about anything for an hour, it's more than just talking specs and running down the list. You've probably got to get into some detail there and some depth. So it's great that you're learning and being able to tell these stories from the dealers and from the manufacturers themselves. So I look forward to
Mhm. seeing
you in person and working with you on these new brands and learning more about them as we go. Because like I said, they're all pretty new to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. To the whole
And you're going
country.
to be, yeah, absolutely. And you're going to be hitting mostly in the near term, the tech summits, the CEDIA tech summits, and then Expo in the fall, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We just started our finalization of CEDIA plans. And then we do also want to bring to various regions in the country, east, central, west for sure. But Meridian's got a reference series speaker, the DSP 8000 XE, and it's revolutionary versus what we've had for 20 years. And I think when folks have a chance to take a listen, they're going to be blown away. And so New York City in August is going to be our first event. And Jeremy, I want to say that I talked to Katie at Meridian 2 days ago. I want to say that you were definitely up there, like, hey, we'd like to have a few press people. So
Ooh, okay.
yeah, that's going to be at Ed Gilmore's place, which is a fascinating venue in New York City. So
Mm.
I couldn't think of a better place for it to be, actually, in New York City. But yeah, man, the regional events, that'll be a highlight at CEDIA as well. But Apex's goal is to make sure that while we're highlighting that pretty awesome technology, that people also understand that there's a total solution from an experiential aspect that we could bring um, to even bolster that awesome technology in the XE Meridian speakers.
Well, that's great. Look forward to continuing to learn more. And I'm sure a lot of other folks were going to be in touch with you and you're going to be reaching out to them. And best of luck with all of that, and enjoy the summer and try not to work too hard out on the road. Thanks for taking the time out today. I really appreciate it, Jimmy.
Dude, thank you for having me on this here, man. And it was so good to reconnect with you.
Likewise. Jimmy Paschke is VP of Sales and Marketing for Apex Technologies US, the distributor of several high-performance European AV brands. You can connect with Jimmy via LinkedIn or learn more about his brands and the company at apex-tech.us to learn more. And that wraps up today's show. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast on your preferred platform and consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can subscribe to the bi-monthly or print or digital magazine and to our email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential tech talk, lighting specialist to architects, to